So, Ms. Pengrino, you've now officially finished Son of Frankenstein. Because the bride's gone, so we're just back down to...
Right, just the one.
It's not really...
Right.
Really has no semblance because it was the original... So you finished Son of Frankenstein, Ms. Pengrino?
So all done.
Yeah, so we finished the trilogy. Well, it's not, of course, there's 6 Frankenstein movies.
No.
We were not going to do, like we talked about in the Frankenstein review, we're not going to do all 6. The first 3 are the best ones.
You get 3 and that's all you get.
That's it.
That's all I have the mental capacity for.
That, and we got to wrap it up because it's almost the end of October. So it's basically Halloween now. So I've got my favorite Phantom of the Opera t-shirt on. I've got the Monsters hat back on. I've got the Frankenstein ring and my Happy Halloween bracelet. I'm just all decked out for the holiday.
And I have Batman.
That's not scary.
And I have a Bruce. Yeah, see?
What the hell is even that?
Yeah, so we should note, Ms. Pengrino, we're glad you're here because you had another seizure episode.
I did.
So thankfully you're still here with us.
Yeah.
But because of that,
Just barely.
You were in the hospital, and so that's why you have these little bruises because they had to do the boop, boop, boop.
Yeah, because apparently I don't like to give blood. Apparently I have no blood in my body.
No.
And so they had to go in like literally the side of my arm, which is like the weirdest spot ever, but it's the only vein we could find.
Welcome to the medical side of Superfuzz Productions.
Thanks, I hate it.
No, but anyway, Miss Pengrino, what did you think of Son of Frankenstein? So it's not my out of those three movies, it's my least favorite. I don't like it as much as the original Frankenstein. Definitely don't like it as much as Bride. Bride is my favorite out of the 3.
Yeah, Bride is definitely the best because it's like silly but not totally stupid. This one just like was flat out stupid.
So there's a new director this time, Roland V. Lee. Don't really know his work. Probably one of those situations where if we saw his filmography, probably would know his work.
Maybe.
But anyway, so it's not James Whale. James Whale, of course, was like the kooky, kind of crazy-minded director who did the first 2 movies. But that being said, I don't know if you noticed this, but like the setup, the outside of like the castle and everything, it had a very Tim Burton-y feel, the way it was all designed and built.
It did. The inside of Maine did too, like
a little bit.
The stairs were and things
more
like
so than in James Whale's movies.
Looked very Edward Scissorhand-ish.
I would agree with that. Yeah. So obviously Tim Burton was here we go.
Wake up!
Clearly, Tim Burton was highly influenced by these types of movies, the gothic horror, because you see a lot of that in there. Speaking of seeing a lot of this movie is the biggest influence of Young Frankenstein.
Oh, definitely.
Without a doubt. You have the one-armed inspector whose other arm goes like this, and he pushes it down.
Hans, Wilhelm, Friedrich, Kemp.
Of course, this is Frankenstein's offspring.
Yeah.
This is the son of Frankenstein, Wolfgang Frankenstein, and he's basically not welcome in Transylvania, much like how Frederick Frankenstein is in Young Frankenstein, because they know of the past and everything.
We come to meet you, not to greet you.
And then the inspector keeps showing up because he's like, I know you're
here to protect you.
I know you're doing stuff. I know you're doing stuff. You can't fool me. And so, and then of course the dart game. That was my favorite part because I had forgotten. I hadn't seen Son of Frankenstein in many years. Last year I watched it the first time in a long time, and I had forgotten that there was the dart game from Young Frankenstein was influenced from the Son of Frankenstein film, where he actually does put the darts in his bad arm.
For a second, I've watched this whole movie.
Yeah.
I look away for a second, and he goes, "Come on, you missed the best part."
This was the best part.
What's the best part?
I mean,
when he sticks the darts in his arm.
Because it's so absurd in a movie like this. And Young Frankenstein, it makes sense. It's a comedy. Of course, he would put it in his bad arm. But in this movie, it makes no sense. He should not have done that, but he did it, and it's great. The influence from Young Frankenstein is hardcore in this movie.
I didn't like that. Spoiler alert: that Igor's a bad guy.
So, okay, well, it should be noted that, of course, Bela Lugosi is in this movie. This is the first of 3 Frankenstein films that Bela Lugosi is present. In this film, he plays Igor, who is the mad assistant to Dr. Frankenstein in this film. Again, that is not the right film.
Why are you the way that you are?
Igor, portrayed by Bela Lugosi, doesn't have a hunchback, but he's a broken neck because he was convicted of crimes, and the village tried to hang him. But he didn't die. So he can never be hung again, no matter what he does, because he's already been pronounced dead. So, but he survived, and now here he is. So he's not a great guy. That's very true. He's a bad man because he controls the monster. Mm-hmm. The monster is under his control. Where Igor came from, I'm not exactly sure. He's not mentioned in any other movies. The first 2 movies, he is mentioned in other films, but there is no connection to anything with him. He just appears, and somehow he becomes the best friend of the monster, and then he takes care of the monster. But the monster has, in the interim of these 2 movies, has been struck by lightning. So all the talking and learning that he did in the second film, he's lost, and he's back to just the.
Kind of drives me crazy.
Why is that, Miss Pengrino?
We went through the whole thing.
Yeah?
The whole kit and caboodle to get him to learn. And now he's stupid again.
Well, I mean, again, that's not really his fault.
I know.
It just happens. But what I liked about this movie is that it just takes off from the very beginning. As soon as Wolfgang Frankenstein gets there, he's like, I'm bringing the monster back to life. Let's do this shit. Let's go. Let's shoot this fucker.
Let's shoot this fucker.
I mean, it definitely does go.
Mm-hmm.
It skyrockets and it doesn't stop.
This is the most action-packed of the first 3, without a doubt. And so it keeps your attention. There's always something moving. It is gothic horror, but it's not just luminous, ethereal type gothic horror. It's like a legit horror movie / action movie. He's there's movement, there's things going on, there's things happening.
I just feel yes, I mean, I guess it's not an awful movie. Mm-hmm. Probably for me, it's Bride, Son, Original, just because.
Really?
Just because there wasn't really anything to the original. The original is so boring, it was really hard for me to focus.
The original is great.
Sure. But that being said, I don't feel like there was a point for this to be made.
You really didn't have to keep going with it, and that's the thing.
It wasn't necessary.
The Frankenstein
wasn't bad per se, but not necessary at all.
The Frankenstein franchise just kept chugging along because it made so much money. Every movie they did was so popular. Frankenstein was a huge hit. Bride of Frankenstein, even bigger hit. Son of Frankenstein, solid hit. Wasn't as big as the other 2, but still was popular enough for them to keep the franchise going. So that's why they did. I keep saying 3 other movies, but the Frankenstein's monster appears in 4 other Universal horror movies. 4 more after this, and then even in a comedy, Abbott and Costello Meet Dracula or Meet Frankenstein. One of them, anyway.
Who knows?
They do a bunch of those later on down the road. So yeah, I mean, that character was just so iconic for Universal that they just kept cranking these movies out. The plots became dumber and dumber as they went on, as you can imagine. But that's why I kind of stopped it here, because it's this is the end really of that solid story of the Frankenstein family.
And it could have ended because, spoiler alert, should you watch this.
Should you watch this almost 100-year-old film.
Right. Mm-hmm. He falls into a vat of sulfur. Mm-hmm. So a pretty good ending to something that would literally melt the skin off of anything.
But also exploding him twice should have killed him too. Yeah.
But for some reason, should that not have done that?
Yeah.
This would have been a good end to it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of Basil Rathbone as the son of Frankenstein, Wolfgang Frankenstein?
Bathrobe.
That's right, Basil Bathrobe.
Basil Bathrobe.
That's what you thought his name was in the title sequence, in the title opening credits.
Did you mention I had a seizure?
I've had 2 now, yeah.
2 now, yes.
Oh, poor baby.
Yeah.
So my brain did not read it really well.
Basil Bathrobe.
Basil Bathrobe is what I thought it said. No, he probably actually was my favorite Frankenstein, to be honest. I do like him as Frankenstein, but that being said, I probably like him the best as Frankenstein because you showed me young Frankenstein before any of the actual Frankensteins.
Right.
So therefore, I love Gene Wilder. I'm going to love his depiction. Therefore, Bathrobe was the closest to Gene Wilder's. In fact, he even looks a smidge like him.
Yeah. Gene Wilder based his character off of both Frankensteins. The Dr. Henry Frankenstein, played by Colin Clive, I think that was his name, and then Basil Rathbone's Wolf Frankenstein in Son of Frankenstein. And you could just see that the melodrama coming from Wolfgang Frankenstein in this movie was so much more than like, well, I mean, Henry Frankenstein. I mean, he eats the scenery as well in those at least in the first movie.
Yeah.
The "It's Alive" scene is still so iconic. But yeah, in this scene, like you can almost tell that this Frankenstein is a little bit more unhinged than his father's because he can just lose it just like that over the slightest thing.
Is it the old legendary monster of my father's time? Or am I supposed to have whipped one up as a housewife whips up an omelet?
It's interesting. I think his portrayal of a mad scientist was a little bit better than Colin Clive's, I have to admit.
As a man, I should destroy him. But as a scientist, I should do everything in my power to bring him back to conscious life.
But Basil Rathbone was also a huge star from the 30s through the early 60s. Like, he was super bigly aged. Like, he was highly in demand for horror, for mystery, for some action. Like, he was like a versatile actor during that time. So, to have him as a part of the Universal horror clan was kind of awesome. Because he just exuded that type of behavior. But yeah, he was great. This was the last film that Boris Karloff played the monster. From this point on, it would be played by different actors. In the next film, The Ghost of Frankenstein.
That also seems not worth it then at that point.
To keep going without Karloff? Because Karloff is the quintessential monster. He really was.
This guy.
He is. He's based off of this. The action figure here is based off of him. And in the next film, Lon Chaney Jr. plays him in The Ghost of Frankenstein. Bela Lugosi plays him in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. And in House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, played by a stuntman by the name of Glenn Strange. And Glenn Strange would actually go on to play him in any kind of capacity from that point forward until they stopped having Frankenstein in movies. But yeah. And fun fact about Lon Chaney Jr. Lon Chaney Jr. actually played, other than the Phantom of the Opera and the Invisible Man, played every single other horror monster at least once during his time as a horror icon. He played the Wolfman. That's the character that he made famous. But he also played the monster. He played the Mummy, and he played Dracula. He played all of these roles in all of these movies.
The things.
He did all of the things at one point. So, kudos to Lon Chaney Jr.
May he rest in peace.
Huh?
Was he dead?
Seeing as how he was born in the early 1900s, yes.
May he rest in peace.
But no, overall, Son of Frankenstein is a good movie. Again, it's not my favorite of the three.
It definitely was more new age, I guess you could say. You could definitely...
elaborate.
Well,
We're waiting.
what was the amount of years difference between the first one and this one?
Well, okay, so like the first two happen like side by side. Like
Right.
the second movie picks up right after the first one ends.
No. I mean,
Well, you follow me on this, okay? So the second one picks up right after the first one ends, okay?
Yeah.
And then the third one takes place, I don't know, however old Wolfgang Frankenstein would have been at this point, because the second one, Henry Frankenstein is about to marry Elizabeth Frankenstein. Well, her name would be Frankenstein. And so Wolfgang is obviously their son.
Yes.
So think about how old Basil Rathbone would have been at that point. I guess 30 something. So like maybe 30, almost 40 years after the events of Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein.
But like in filming wise,
the actual film.
Yes.
8 years after the first one, and I think 4 years after the second one.
Okay. So I felt like the first one was more almost like the first film ever filmed after a silent movie.
It was.
Right.
Well,
okay.
not
like the first one.
Literally.
But close to it.
But we talked about this. Yeah.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. This is what is more new age. It was the only word I could think of, or more.
It's more modern. It was more of a modern horror film set
like,
in the talking era.
Of which you could tell, like, it didn't seem like their sound was just in a random environment or different things. Like
by Bride of Frankenstein, they had finally realized, we should probably fill in these giant gaps of just utter silence with music, and so that's what they did. And then, so by the time you get to, because I'll give you the dates. Frankenstein was 31. Bride was 35, Son was 39. So by the time Son of Frankenstein rolled around, all of Hollywood...
It wasn't 69.
You're done. You're done.
By the time Son of Frankenstein rolled around, they'd completely fixed that problem. It's like they knew how to make modern movies at that point.
And the reason I bring that up is because, like, I feel like maybe I'm harshing on the first one much harsher than probably it
Much
needs,
harsher?
Much harsher than it needs to be. But for me, as someone with ADD and like the need of help to focus, something like that is hard for me to focus on. So of course these seem slightly better, because when there's that silence, my brain just and wanders away.
I don't understand that.
Or when there's not constant action, my brain just wanders away.
But see, that's the beauty of that original film, and those original films in general, is because they're so atmospheric. The atmosphere of just the silence and the utter creepiness, that's what it was captivating, and that's what drew people in. That's what made people get excited about those movies.
Well, it didn't draw me in.
How convenient.
In fact, it drew me away. I wanted it to be done with.
Right. Well, but again, you have to take it into consideration because, Frankenstein came out in 1931. They were just starting to do talking pictures regularly at that point. They were still even doing silent movies at that time. But Frankenstein but they were starting to do them on a regular basis now, talking pictures.
Yeah.
And so, what do? They didn't know. Okay, they're talking now. Now what? When they're not talking,
what do we do?
Now when they're not talking, what do we do? So that was kind of where that was.
Stand over there.
Literally what it was. Yeah, you just walk around, and we'll put in some sound effects, but that's about the extent of it. So but now Son of Frankenstein is a modern horror film. They caught up with where they needed to be, and it was a little bit more professionally done than it was from the early 30s. But all in all, I love the Frankenstein movies. This is why I wanted to do this in the month of October of this year, because those first three stand out as the quintessential films, and then we find out, spoiler alert, Ms. Pengrino, Igor is not actually dead. He comes back in the next film.
Of course he's not.
He eventually, and this is the thing, he eventually puts his brain inside the monster. And of course the monster is defeated and goes to Frankenstein. But then in the next movie, the Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Of course, Lon Chaney Jr. has to play the Wolfman. Well, Bela Lugosi plays the monster. And a lot of people this isn't canon, but I think it makes more sense that with Bela Lugosi playing him, it makes sense because Igor's brain, played by Bela Lugosi, is put into the monster, so obviously he might take the form of like a Bela Lugosi as the monster type thing. You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going?
Oh, good for you!
I'm so glad we don't have to watch this. Yeah. Sorry, this is just not my forte of kind of movies. I love spooky season, I do. But this is just not...
These are my movies. These are definitely my kind of movies. I love the old Gothic horror. Even when you've not been around, I've been watching them sometimes.
Not saying I don't recommend, if you like that kind of stuff, to go watch it. I'm sure it's great.
Sure, yeah.
Sure, a nice old school family movie night.
Mm-hmm. Because that's how I watched them. I watched them with my parents when I went for the first time, and then I kind of branched off and started watching them on my own, and I fell in love with them. Like I was saying, like even when you're not been here, I've been watching Dracula, I've been watching The Invisible Man again, Phantom of the Opera, classic, copyright. I've been watching them all. and enjoying them because that is my forte in horror movies. But yeah, no, Son of Frankenstein, fine film, not the best of the three. I put it in third place of all three. Oh, we need to talk about the little kid. The little kid.
Oh, the little kid's great.
The
Love the
little kid in that movie was without a doubt the highlight of the film.
I hope I don't have teeth like that. It'd be too hard to clean.
He's just adorable. He's just adorbs. I'm trying to look here. He is. He's still alive today. Donnie Dunnigan is his name. He is 90 years old now. He was born in 1934. But yeah, no, he's still with us. He only worked as an actor until 1942. But yeah, Donnie Dunnigan,
cute kid,
who played Peter Frankenstein, the little kid in the movie, still with us to this day. And yeah, no, he was a highlight because he was a hoot. He was just like a little adult saying like a little adult thing, not like dirty things, but just saying things that you wouldn't hear a kid say. And it was great. I loved it.
Well, hello.
Good morning, son.
And you're right. They could have branched off of that with Young Frankenstein and had it continue. Oh, but see, the Young Frankenstein movie, I have to also, it has no canon relation to the Frankenstein movie.
I know.
It's only based off of the book. So there's that. But all in all, would you? I don't think we've talked. But would you recommend these three movies that we watched this Halloween season?
I mean, definitely throw them in there. It's something having on in the background for me would be a kind of thing. I'm not gonna like sit and.
You're so weird.
Stare it down, but most movies nowadays are kind of just in the background for me. That being said, for most people, they probably could sit and enjoy them.
Yes. I would make at least the first three Frankenstein films part of your Halloween viewing. And 2 words, enjoy, because they are good. I think they're great. So there you have it. Those are the...
But you see that sucker over there? 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds.
There you have it. Those are the 3 Frankenstein, the best Frankenstein films, those 3. So we hope you enjoy. Happy Halloween!
Okay.
Boy, it is surprising though, Miss Pengrino, that the third film in a group of films is a pretty good film. Usually the third film in like a series of films is not the best.
Not the greatest, yeah.
I mean, nothing comes to mind automatically, but there are some films where the third film of the series just not good.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Teebs the cat? No. No! No!